You can vote in the back. Jess is waving at it. Take your buttons, put them on the wall, do the things, all the things. Couple other requests. If you haven't and you're into it, some of you I hope got an email from us not too long ago about doing short little videos. We might do some more, but we'd love to see you share your stories online, whether that's through our platforms or your own. So please do that. Use the Roots Camp hashtag. You can hashtag GainPower, hashtag whatever else you want, but hashtag Roots Camp for this event. Couple other personal requests. Steph asked this yesterday, but I'm going to ask it again. Submit some nominations to the Powerful Idea Awards. We extended it in part because we've been so busy with Roots Camp, we haven't done all the promotion of it we really wanted to do. So we extended the deadlines on the Powerful Idea Awards. You can nominate a person, you can nominate an organization, you can nominate a program, you can nominate technology, you can nominate communications. The awards are really meant to be a community awards for people who work in powering democratic and progressive politics through our democracy, elections, and advocacy. That's what IDEA is, impacting democracy, elections, and advocacy, if you didn't know that. So please submit your nominations, and if you're interested in engaging in other ways, maybe you want to be a judge, maybe you want to you want to be a judge? Yeah. We definitely need community judges. The Powerful Idea Awards will be our next big event. That will be TBD exact date, but in June sometime, I believe. I feel like I had one more announcement. What am I missing? Travel. Oh, thank you. Yes, travel. If any of you have flight delays or changes or anything happens, especially if it's somehow been booked through GainPower and the event, see Natasha. If you can't manage it on your own anyway, some of you might be able to manage it on your own. That's great. You don't have to see us, but if you do need help, let us know. We're here to support you in any way that we can. What else? Do I have other announcements? I feel like I had other announcements. Oh, I do have another announcement. It's really another request. We have a lot of fun breakout rooms. I felt strongly, as did the rest of our team. I know a lot of you joined the drinking caucus like last night. No shade. I was there at the beginning and at the end. In between, I did some vision boarding and went to a sound bath. We'll have different activities tonight, some of the same, but it was important to us to not have everything revolve around alcohol and to create space for some activities that were not political, but created an opportunity for you to get to know one another. So that will be continuing tonight over here. We have a whole variety of breakout rooms with different activities, games, etc. My request, because they just arrived, I ordered a bunch of thank you notes. If you're so inclined, come to the arts and craft room and write a thank you note to one of our sponsors. We'll have a list of who they are, but I just thought that would be a nice touch. To make sure that we got some handwritten notes from folks who were here. A lot of our sponsors were actually not here, but they contributed so that others could attend and not pay the expenses, et cetera. So we have some amazing sponsors, and we'll be writing our own thank you notes, but I thought it would be just really lovely if some of you wrote about what this experience meant to you. And with that in mind, if you don't do that, or even if you do, if you're able to, back to the social media, et cetera, tag them and say thank you on social media, because this was not a cheap event to put on. We might have gotten a little shade about how expensive, in fact, it was, because we did it in such a short period of time. We didn't have time to raise enough to sort of amortize it out. But we really want our sponsors to know how valuable this experience was for many of you, and I hope it has been very valuable for many of you. So please take time to say thank you to our sponsors in any way that you can, and we're creating space for that tonight. So with that in mind, my next job is simply to introduce Emma. I don't know, Emma, have you met everyone yet? Okay. So, Emma, am I allowed to say part of what you do? I don't even know. Am I allowed to? Okay. So, some of you who are on social media, even some of you who might still be on that forum that, oops, apparently mine goes off and that goes on. That's Was it? That's weird. It just, oh, now it's back. It came and went. Throw a little shade at the toxic platform that is now referred to as X. However, there is an incredible community. We call it Twitter. Okay. I don't even know. I'm guilty of being on it occasionally still as well. Haven't fully quit, though that is my intent. But there is an incredible space called Organizer Memes. Anyone follow Organizer Memes? Organizer Memes here in the house.
I'm not the entire production, but I am a big player. VP. My formal title.
Not your role in this particular moment, but very grateful for Emma's support and Organizer Memes support of all the things we do at Gain Power, including this event. And she's been part of our amazing team supporting us. And she is here in this moment to introduce our next guest. So I'm going to let you do that. So thanks all.
Thank you. So yes, thank you, Amy. Like we said, I'm Emma. I'm part of Organizer Memes, but I also am a content creator, just digital. How do we make the internet work in a time when it feels like it's constantly working against us? So if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns about that, you can always talk to me. But that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to introduce my friend. So the first time that I met Representative Ruha Rehman of Georgia was we were standing outside the DNC with the Uncommitted movement, listening to them talk about what it means to care about people and politics. This was as the DNC did not have a Palestinian American speaker, and it was looking more and more like they would not. And so if I recall, this is the first time Ruha and I have ever met in person. We kind of just go up to each other and hold each other and cry. We just cried in each other's arms because of what was happening. It's an issue that means a lot to both of us, very personally. And so it was one of those moments that it's like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. Can I just hold you for a minute and you hold me? And I think that's really emblematic of who she is. Rep Ruha, as friends like to call her, is someone who really cares about people and community. And she is so passionate about kind of nourishing the soil that the people and things she loves grow in. One example of that is she, in her first session as a representative, she was able to pass a bill to enshrine EMS services as essential services, which meant that people in rural parts of Georgia would have access to this really important care. But we also are friends because we like to talk about Taylor Swift together. This is someone she is a whole person. And many people like to say she is not. They want to just use her as a figurehead for a movement, which she likes to talk with. It's an issue that means a lot to her, but we have to remember she's a person who cares. She's not just a figurehead. And so it is my honor to get to introduce this thoughtful, smart, caring person who happens to be a representative, Ms. Ruha Rehman.
Hi. Okay. Thank you. Hopefully I can meet those incredibly high expectations. I was actually joking earlier about how sometimes it's easier to have haters because at least you're not going to disappoint them like you kind of already have. But yes, I am a Georgia State representative. I feel like a lot of people have come to know me because of the DNC shenanigans. So I figured I would tell you a little bit about my story. And the point isn't just to be like, let's keep fighting, rah, rah. The point is to just kind of give you some tangible ways that things can change and that they can happen in very, very unexpected ways. So I did not intend to run for office. That was not a thing on my radar. My husband and I moved back to Georgia after 3 years in DC because I was at grad school, but it was COVID and we're the eldest in both of our families and we just needed to be near them. And the city we chose to live in was right before the housing went absolutely insane, was literally equidistant between our families. And for context, when I say equidistant, I'm talking about the fact that I graduated from the same high school as Marjorie Taylor Greene. So that's my background of growing up in Georgia and how I think it says a lot about how people view the South, but it's true. A high school like mine can literally have somebody like me, and it can have somebody like her, and it's such a complex but very, instrumental place to grow up, I believe. And I was also working for Deloitte Consulting, where I had learned a lot of great management skills. And the reason I said yes was I was like, I want to learn how to properly manage people and then bring that back to our movements and be able to expand our capacity and grow our capacity and actually professionalize a lot of what it is that we're doing. And so I was ready. I was like, I'm going to start applying for jobs with organizations that I've worked with in the past and be able to work with my friends. And through a confluence of events, including helping a friend with an event to train people interested in running for office, an article came out by a journalist who was like, why are you doing all this work? I'm like, we should all be involved. This is really important. And the first sentence was, Real Room is entertaining a run for office. I was not. At all. In fact, we talked about it, and when she had asked me, I said, I don't even know what district I live in because they had just redrawn the maps. I don't know. Like, this is not on my radar. And my friends, who I thought they were my friends, looked at my address, and they were like, you live in an open state house seat. And they started a mini campaign to get me to start a whole campaign. And so this was like I remember the day the article came out. It was December 23rd, 2021. It was my husband and I's anniversary. We were trying to disconnect. And next thing I know, every day, a few people would call me. Like, how can I help? I will volunteer for you. I will help you fundraise. And as somebody who's been doing this work for so long, it is incredibly rare to have people say things like, I will do work for you. Because people are just really, really just burned out. And we had just finished the 2020 elections, including a runoff for two Senate seats where we were able to flip the Senate when no one thought that Georgia could. And I said, you know what? Fine, let's do it. So 15 days later, we launched my campaign. And the rest, as they say, is literally history. But what I haven't told a lot of people until about this year was that I had sat down with a family friend who did a lot of fundraising. And I said, I don't know how to raise money to save my life. I can run campaigns like the back of my hand, but I just don't think it's a good idea for me to be that person because my grandfather just passed away. And I said, I don't think I can handle doing any advocacy work when it comes to anything related to Palestine. Because the idea of burying my ancestors in a place where they did not want to be was already hard enough. And so he looked at me and he goes, this is State House. You're not going to be doing anything on this. And I was like, good point. He's like, you care about, fully funding education and like some of the more like nitty-gritty, boring stuff as he described it, and specifically voting rights, for the record, which is not boring at all in a state like Georgia. And I said, you know what? If you're willing to commit to helping me fundraise, I'm willing to commit to give this my all. And I did. We launched my campaign in 15 days. The sitting member of Congress in my district actually endorsed against me. She ended up losing very badly, and in addition to my opponent. But yeah, we literally made history. And so I was sworn in 2023, and not even 9 months later, suddenly, I, as the only elected Palestinian in the state's history, became a spokesperson for a whole people. And it was probably one of the most jarring experiences of my life because I was like, as a state representative, we don't get staff. We don't have a media person. Any staffer I had to fundraise for. We have an admin assistant that we share between 8 people, but it was structure. And so we did. Before I knew it, every time something happened or there was an update, people would come to me. I was then involved in conversations like, hey, we need to prepare for a meeting with the president. Do you have any talking points? And I was just like, I'm a state representative. I don't know. But yes, I had a lot of talking points, actually, to be quite honest. I rewrote a lot of really bad talking points. And it also created a crisis because I ran as a Democrat. I was a sitting Democrat. I was caucusing with the Democrats. And the leader of our party was saying things like, oh, well, actually, there's not that many dead people. Like, actually, the death toll is inflated. He said things like, oh, well, it was like the other team that did it, not that team. Like it was like a football game. And people kept telling me that I was like exaggerating, that like he's trying to work for a ceasefire, that like the president was really committed to peace. And I didn't know how to explain to them the concept of like Christian Zionism or how that there are a lot of especially older folks in our party who had never met a Palestinian and had only known of Palestinians as one way. And in spite of that, by the way, managed to pass a bill out of the House, did 2 different sessions, stopped every anti-LGBTQ bill last year, oh, and by the way, was running for office again. And it sucked. I mean, no, but like seriously, it sucked. Like it's not like a cheering, but I think everyone kind of saw the like very publicized piece of it, but there was a lot also going on in Georgia. We still had our own races, and we still had every branch of government was controlled by Republicans. And I think sometimes people forget that when we get really into these sort of important values-based conversations, our opposition, no matter who they are, is still constantly working. The Republicans, at every turn, were still introducing bad bills. They were still trying to push really terrible things. Oh, and by the way, they absolutely used this issue to drive a wedge in our caucus. And we didn't have leadership at the time. I mean, I've been very open about this. Our leadership was non-existent. And so I had to maneuver this like incredibly insane world that went from like, oh, I'm entry level, you know, to all of a sudden it's like, oh, actually we're going to skip to level 100 and you're at the final boss. And for anyone who plays video games, you know that if you skip levels, then you kind of end up, you know, feeling like you're going to lose. And so you started to like navigate this. It was like a whole new world that me and my team navigated, and my poor campaign manager. So didn't have a primary, thank God, although I actually think it's terrible because I think everyone should be primaried, and I think every seat should be contested, and I will continue to say that forever. But it was a bit of a reprieve, which meant that I didn't really have to fully launch my campaign until June, July, which a lot of people still think is early, but I think it's absurd. And we did. So my campaign manager, Anna Hall, was one of the people that applied. And so she started on my campaign 3 days before I flew to Chicago. And so I fly to Chicago. She's like, oh, do you need me to come with you? I'm like, no, I'm going to a panel at the Arab American Institute. How bad can it be? Which I need to stop saying things like that because it never, ever ends well. And for the record, I have I do not fuck with the DNC rule since 2016 for anybody who's like, because, you know, that primary was like the first one that I was ever, you know, a part of, because the first presidential I voted for was in 2012. It was the second Obama term, so it wasn't like the same kind of, you know, back and forth. So ever since 2016, I was like, I actually really do love my state, and I want to make my state better, and I think a lot of people ignore it, and this is where the work is at. And so I went to the Arab American Institute for a panel, and somehow I ended up sleeping outside the DNC 2 days later. Actually, we didn't really sleep, but it was more of a sit-in. And I think that moment really clarified a lot of things for me, but in particular, it was a moment where I realized that we have managed to recognize all the structural problems in politics, our society, etc., but we have yet to create effective responses to them. And what I mean by that is that I think that a lot of times, even elected officials will kind of internalize this like learned business. Oh, we're in the minority. Oh, like there's this rule, there's that rule, there's like this problem, there's this problem. Like money in politics is a huge issue. Oh, this is like really insurmountable. And I'm not trying to dismiss any of that at all. But I remember literally like just thinking, as I saw Jeff Duncan on that stage, who literally got abortion banned in our state, that it should have never gotten this far. And I also remember thinking a couple of things. One, in a state like Georgia, I've been able to watch Republicans very closely and how they operate. And the way they operate is that they radicalize their people into institutions. They actually radicalize them into taking over the political process. And I feel like we radicalize people out of it. And so suddenly there's like no opposition about any like on anything. We're not pulling anybody left. We're not stopping the right. And it suddenly becomes sort of it's like the ratchet effect, right? Like Democrats get into power and they're trying to stop all the bad. Republicans come in and make it worse, but no one's actually trying to make it better kind of thing. But it's math. And I was literally like laying on that sidewalk with some friends who I have come to love, and all I could think was, I never want to have to lay on a sidewalk again. Because the only reason I agreed to run for office was that people asked me to. But the most compelling reason was that I was tired of convincing somebody else to push the button I wanted them to push. I was so sick and tired of begging other people to do the right thing. I was wasting so much time, energy, and money being like, please vote this way on this bill. Please don't vote this way on this bill. Please take care of this. Please, like, no. I was sick of it. But I'm really worried because I feel like a lot of people who are also sick of it, instead of leaning in 10 times as hard, are actually leaning out. And I want to give a very specific example of this. I think with Jamal Bowman, there were a lot of structural problems that I don't think we could have overcome, specifically gerrymandering, but I firmly believe that we failed Cori Bush. And what I mean by that is I actually looked at her entire race, and the turnout in her district was around 20% for a primary. Half as many people turned out to vote in her primary as years prior. Half. And it was a presidential cycle. And it was specifically because every day that I got on social media, people would say things like, well, there's no point in voting. Voting harder is not a good enough tactic. You know, like, enough is enough. We're no longer going to be involved in this. And as somebody who's in the South, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is like a voter suppression tactic. It's literally one that the Republicans have used for decades to maintain the majority. And I actually watched it. And not only that, we actually just got analysis that said that in 2020, 90% of black voters felt like their vote mattered. In 2024, it was 70%. And so, how does that connect to like the DNC and everything else? One of the most effective quote-unquote movements, and the reason we're here today, is the Tea Party. And what they've done is they have contested every seat at every level, from school board on up. And yes, some of it was astroturfed by billionaires. I'm aware money in politics is a problem. But one of my colleagues lost their race by 80 votes. And there were 300 Muslims that lived in his district that were told their vote didn't matter. There's no point in them voting, and that none of the parties reflect their values. Even though he did. He's a state rep who voted the way we wanted him to on everything. Oh, and he was Muslim, by the way. But those 300 Muslim people that didn't vote were all told their votes don't matter. And there were so many organizers that come to me and say, nothing we do matters. There's no point anymore. We need to just like burn it all down and start our own thing. But then there's like Elon Musk, who's running around our government right now, like just doing whatever he wants. And honestly, all I could think is like, sometimes when hope is really hard, which I do believe hope is a discipline. I'm not like one of those like toxically positive people. I actually think that like hope is really important to remember when you're like having a really shit day. But like even when you can't, spite is also a really good emotion. Like honest to God. And like after the DNC, I could have taken my ball and gone home, right? I could have been like, you know what, I don't care about any of you. I'm not gonna knock a door, like I'm gonna win anyway. I don't care about anything, like screw everybody. But we still tried to engage with the campaign. We still tried to course correct. We knocked 10,000 doors in 2 months as a little baby state race. Like, we did everything we could. And I could say that. I could honestly say I did everything in my power. And I think we can change our world if each and every single one of us did that. Because here's the reality, and I'm going to be so honest with you. In December of 2023, I wrote a resignation letter. And I was going to walk over to the speaker's office, be like, I don't want to make it a thing, but I'm out. And hilariously, I thought about the one colleague who has continued to like dehumanize Palestinians and share some of those like worst things you can think of, and I was like, do I really want to give them the satisfaction? And then I ripped up my resignation letter. So like genuinely, like there are times, and I'm trying to be like so real here right now, is that like I could be like, we could do it, like let's go, like we gotta have hope and we gotta be positive and we gotta like. But honest to God, sometimes you just got to remember that if you give up, your opposition gets completely unfettered like pathways to everything they want to do. And sometimes being a thorn in someone's side and being tenacious is enough so that way one day you can outlast them. Because that's what it comes down to. Eventually, we are going to outlast these people. Eventually, those positions are going to be open. And not only that, we were talking earlier during one of our sessions about, like, what would that even look like? Okay, fine, we're not going to burn it down, but what do we do? And I was like, you guys, even something like the DNC chair, the people who vote for the DNC, those are state party people. Everything is happening in our own backyard. And yet the people that show up the most are the same people we all disagree with. Whether the center, the right, whatever. And me going to my colleagues at a caucus meeting and saying things like, we should take this position, it's really important. Sure, they might listen to me because I've actually been effective as a legislator, but they listen to me so much more when they get emails from people saying the same thing I'm saying to them. Because if they're only hearing it from me, it doesn't matter. But if people are emailing them and calling them and telling them the exact same thing I'm telling them, it changes the dynamics of an entire caucus. Democrats are going to be risking arrest because people called them and said, I need you to get your shit together, and I know you're in the minority, but do whatever you got to do. And anyone who keeps saying things like, voting doesn't matter, calling doesn't matter, emailing doesn't matter, being involved doesn't matter, to me, that's an op. Enough. We need everybody right now. I cannot guarantee that things are going to be okay. That's never something any of us can ever guarantee. But what I can guarantee is that if we show up, at bare minimum, we have built enough infrastructure together that we can take care of one another. There are too many people trying to stop us, and we cannot be doing the work for them. And so if a Palestinian person in a state like Georgia could get elected, and on top of that pass a bill out of a Republican-controlled House, which sadly ran out of time on the Senate, but we're going to try again. If somebody like me can do that, a young freshman progressive in the South. Oh, and by the way, I really did mean it. Last year we stopped every single anti-LGBTQ bill as the minority party in every branch of government. So just like they show up to committee hearings and just like they pressure their members and just like they are involved, we can do the same. That's how party discipline gets created. And I want us to be the ones to create that party discipline. I know things seem really bleak right now, and they are. I'm not going to pretend they're not. But please understand that they have been bleaker in the past. They may get bleaker in the future. But oppression always ends. Even though it's reemerging, it always ends. And it ends when people like you in this room come together and say enough is enough. So thank you for being here. Thank you for at least showing up, even though I know a lot of you didn't want to. A lot of you felt like there's no point. But I hope you know that you can hold on to your values. You can fight for what you believe in. And not only that, it's actually how you win. Do not ever let anybody convince you otherwise. Thank you.
Hi. Okay, so how many of you in here are fangirling a little bit? Because I'm fangirling really hard. From Heather Booth to Rua to Ashanti, I am fangirling like you wouldn't believe right now, and I feel like a silly teenager. Also, you all should know about me. I would rather eat my arm than speak in public. Which is really funny because my name's Sarah Laughlin. I'm the executive director of Progress Now Colorado. So yes, something very out of character, right? As the daughter of a South Vietnamese refugee who never thought she'd run for office, I was perfectly content to hang out behind the scenes and do what needed to be done to make a difference in the world. Because my parents taught me that you had to do what you needed to do to make a difference, and it's the right thing to do, and I draw a lot of inspiration and energy. Again, I'm fangirling really hard. It is my honor to, and as an Emerge alumni and recent outgoing mayor pro tem of Erie, Colorado, it is my honor to introduce Ashanti. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that. Golar, sorry. I was like, oh. So thank you, and Ashanti. Yeah. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Oh, is there a mic? Okay.
All right. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. Just thank you so much, Amy, for having me and for everything that you do. I have known Amy ever since I started getting involved in national politics, and she was one of the very first people to really see me and support me. So whenever Amy calls, here I am. So a round of applause for her and everything that she does for us. Thank you, Sarah, for that introduction. I always love when I get to be around our Emerge alums. I know we have another one here, Rua, who I will talk about in my presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who aren't familiar with Emerge, we are the nation's largest network of women elected officials and candidates. We are actually celebrating 20 years this year. We started in 2002 with our first California affiliate, what actually came out of Vice President Harris's very first race for DA. Our co-founders were really good friends with her, looked around and realized there wasn't a really great place for women to go to get the tools, the resources, and skills that they needed to run for office. So our California affiliate was created in 2002, and a national organization was created in 2005. This is where we stand. Throughout our signature training programs and our boot camps, our specialty programs, we train 6,000 women to run for office. Over 1,200 are currently serving in office at all levels. We had 600 candidates on the ballot in 2024, and we had them in 30 states across the country. Now, we know that the election really didn't go the way we wanted it to go in a lot of places, particularly the White House. We get to wake up every day to a criminal doing criminal things. That is what he does. But we know that there is still hope, there is still advantages, because we did elect great Democrats last year. Next slide. So out of those 600, we actually elected over 400 to office, giving us a 70% win rate. And I'm going to talk more about these women because you will see that they are everyday people who cared about their community, and they're activists who decided to wake up one day and continue to make change by running for office. One of the things that we are proud of at Emerge, and something we will continue to stand 10 toes down on, is centering equity and justice. When we created our Emerge 2035 vision, it was something I had the opportunity to do with our team when I came on as president. We looked to the future of the country. What was it going to look like in 2030 and 2040 and 2050? And it was very obvious that the new American majority was going to continue to rise, but particularly women of the new American majority. Black, brown, and indigenous women, women of color, young women, LGBTQ women, unmarried women. And we're proud that they had a 68% win rate last cycle. And if we dive down into that number even further, our Black women alums had the highest win rate, set with 70%. And I think, thank you. And I think that that number is really important when we continue to hear, should Black women be running? Should we be voting for them? The answer is yes, because when they run, they win. And thank you, yeah. I love snaps, thank you. So since our founding, we have been on a trajectory to build a woman-led America. I'm very honest about the fact that parity is great, but parity is just equal amount of men, equal amount of women. It doesn't give us good policy. And it also doesn't mean that we're going to have parity in every state across all of those offices. But for us, we know that this has to be about building infrastructure for the long haul. It's one of the amazing things that I love about Amy is that she has built infrastructure in the Democratic Party. So that is something that we do at Emerge, and we know that we continue to do. And by us empowering women to lead and helping them succeed, we seek to provide new representation and repower institutions. And that is something that takes all of us. We identify the candidates who are from their community. That is one of the things that really stands out when we talk about, okay, who are the elected officials who are really leading? Who are the people that should put their name on the ballot? For us, we focus on those community-driven candidates because they know the voices of their community. They know the people, and that makes them extremely strong. So our strategy has continually proved to be great. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about our community-driven candidates and the policies that they are leading on during this time. Next slide. I absolutely love talking about these two women. They are from Oregon. Oregon has 6 congressional seats. Emerge alums hold 4 out of 6 of those congressional seats. This goes back to the strategy. This goes back to having community-driven candidates. We have Andrea Salinas. She is one of the first Latinas to represent Oregon in Congress. She was joined this year by Janelle Bynum, who is the first Black woman to represent Oregon in Congress. Janelle's race was one of the most targeted last cycle, and she is a small business owner, an engineer, and a mom of 4. I like to get all of her accolades in there. And what she really did was just grounded her campaign on kitchen table issues like affordable housing, supporting the economy, and lowering healthcare costs. She flipped that seat from red to blue, and that was just powered by her focusing on her community. So I love the fact that we have these 2 women, we have 2 other women, and we're able to hold 66% of those congressional seats in Oregon. And of course, you know me, I'm already plotting on how we get the other 2. Next slide. And this goes into a full look at the Emerge Congressional Caucus. We know that Congress is really close, and we're very proud of the fact that it is due to Emerge alums. We actually expanded the Emerge Congressional Caucus from 8 women to 13 women. One of them you may have seen recently, she went viral, LaMonica McIver, with her speech talking about Trump. LaMonica actually wasn't going to run for that congressional seat. She is a part of our Seated Together program, which focuses on Black women running for higher office, and they encouraged her to run, and then she won. Yes, we absolutely love LaMonica. And this goes back to our strategy of empowering women to run in their communities, but we know it's not a one-size-fits-all, and if we want to win, no matter what happens at the national level, no matter what the atmosphere is, we have to prepare our candidates to localize their priorities and their policies. So these are some of the bright spots that we had, and it's extremely important because these are the women who right now are fighting back against the criminal things that are coming out of the criminal White House. Next slide. There's been a lot of talk about digital, right? What can we do better? Where do we miss opportunities? And this is something that we at Emerge started to ingrain into our work over the past few years. We know that we have to meet people where they are, and especially when it comes to young people, that has to be online. That is from social media. That is from YouTube. It's even if they're just watching a podcast instead of listening to it. We did 2 key things last year to start to harness the power of digital. The first is Women Talk Politics Day. We just wanted to give women the opportunity to say why they are voting and not make politics a dirty word, because we know there's so many people who will still say, I don't want to talk about politics. Oh, it just causes issues with family and friends. It's just simple. How are you voting? Why are you voting? We saw this go viral. It started picking up its own steam on Instagram because women were just feeling so excited about the fact that they had the opportunity to say that they had skin in the game. This is why they were voting, and encouraging others to do the same. When we were in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention, we absolutely love the fact that for the first time the convention brought content creators. It was one of my mentees who had this idea, and it was extremely successful. We brought them together for a dinner just to talk about how do we keep the conversation going post-election, that we need to make sure that we're continuing to be engaged. And these are the people that a lot of them are going to listen to, the ones who have built their trust, who they see on their feed every day. It's been really crucial to having that success. So we're looking forward to building on these relationships and creating more opportunities for our alums. And heading into the next election, we're going to continue investing in the social and digital media and meeting our audiences where they are so they can grow. We know that at the end of the day, progress happens because of people like you in this room, the advocates, the strategizers, and the change makers who are the backbone of our country, all of our communities, leading in civic life and increasing representation across the government. And our network is growing because we have great people like you who know how to tap into your networks digitally, which will help us all. Next slide. Okay. I think something got mixed up, but we are all good. I talked a little bit about our 2035 goals. You can see them here. And these are all built around organizing, doing the work, continuing to meet the moment, reaching 100,000 women of the new American majority, fostering a lift as you climb culture. That means that when a woman runs for office, we want for her to run for higher office. We don't believe that she has to bloom where she's planted. That's something that the patriarchy likes to teach women. We want for them to ascend, but to also be very smart about it, that when they run for that higher seat, making sure that we have another woman who can fill the seat to keep the progress going. And of course, doing what we do best and why we're here, why we're doing all of this work is to repower political structures. There's 520,000 elected offices in this country. So that's 520,000 people that get to shape our lives with the stroke of a pen every single day. The president and vice president, there are just two. The Senate and the House, that's 535. The rest are all at the state and local level. And these are the people, some of them are counting on us to show up, but the majority of them are counting on us not to show up. And that's why we have to continue to do this work, to be in community, and to mobilize 365 days a year. We know that's important when we look at our state houses, when we look at the courts. The resistance right now is happening in the courts. It's going to be at the judicial level, which is why we have our program called Gavel In, which focuses on recruiting and training women to run for judicial seats. But it's also making sure that we have people in these key appointments on boards and commissions, because so many of them go left unfilled, and that's what they count on, is not having the voices of the people in the community. Next slide. Because we know at the heart of politics are communities. One of the things that we started immediately doing after the election was hosting community conversations. We wanted to bring people together to talk about what happened, how they felt, but most importantly, how do we go forward? With all of the chaos coming down from this administration, it's critical that we find places to convene, plan, and take action, which is why we're all here. And going back to that digital piece, having those micro-influencers. When we did the feedback survey after our very first community conversation, there was one piece that really stood out to me, and someone had said, I like hard work. I'm not scared of hard work. I want to do the hard work. I just don't know where to start. And that's why it's important for us to make sure that we are reaching out to those people who want to be involved. They want to be helpful. They just don't know where. And I like to call them the micro-influencers, because they're the people who have 85 followers on Instagram. But guess what? Those 85 followers are their close friends, their family, people that they have influence over, who are more likely to listen to them than to me. So that's what we're doing a lot with our community conversations. And this is something that we would love to have all of you be a part of at the Emerge level, or how can you do community conversations on your own? Just finding that one person and helping them get engaged, knowing that they're going to be able to reach the people that we aren't able to. And for them, we also know that sometimes it's nice to have an understanding ear and a safe haven, especially for people who may feel targeted right now, to know that there still are people out here fighting and doing the work. Next slide. All right. Rua, you're on the slide. We actually did this before we knew Rua was going to be here. But when we talk about bringing activism to office, when we talk about community-centered candidates, when we talk about politics being the heart of communities, we do talk about women like Rua, who has been able to make strong change in her community and also bring that to the national level and let other people know that they too can have a story like hers. One of our other alums that we're really excited about is Gay Valamont, and she is actually running this year for the seat that was formerly held by Matt Gaetz. I think we all know him. Yeah. That's an acceptable boo for my speech. Thank you. Thank you. So I do want to tell you all a little bit about her. So she has actually decided to run despite facing a lot of personal issues. In the span of a year, she faced losing her husband, Brian, to ALS, and then their 8-year-old son, Eli, to a rare brain tumor. Yeah. And in the face of this profound grief, she found strength in activism, becoming a powerful voice in the fight against gun violence in Florida and across the nation. She served as the Florida State lead of Moms Demand Action, and during her decade of leadership, she helped expand the Florida chapter by over 400%. Now she's running for Congress. We know that activists make the best leaders, and this is the ecosystem that we need to build. Yes, we need those amazing candidates, but candidates also need great campaign staff. The campaign staff needs the great volunteers and the activists. We can even take it to having those great people who are working in the offices of elected officials to support them. So we are so thankful for activists who step into the roles of candidates and elected officials because we know it isn't easy. So thank you, Rua, and thank you to any other elected officials in the room for what you do. And I hope that you will continue to know more about Rua, but also Gay as well. These are just some of the amazing women in our network who are a testament to the power that we have when we decide to step into activism, but then take it to the next level running for office. Next slide. We also have our C3 work that we do, which focuses on broad leadership development. That came out of our work training women to run for office. There were so many great women that we saw, and we said, you should run for office. And their response would be, no, not me. I'm not a leader. Despite the fact that they were doing all the things. They were running the PTA. They were helping on everyone else's campaign. They were at the city council meetings and know the issues like the back of their hand and should be on the dais. The things that we saw, they didn't see. So we wanted to build a pre-pipeline to the pipeline, as I like to say, and that is with our C3 work with Leaders Emerge, making sure that we also take the holistic approach to leadership development because it is hard. We talk about the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, the physical aspect of leadership. And we know that this is effective because we have seen about half of the women who do our leadership development program go on to run for office. Next slide. We know 2025 is right around the corner because every year is an election year. So these are opportunities for us to really start to look at what the midterms are going to be like, what 2028 is going to be like by taking a deep dive into Virginia and also New Jersey. We are really excited for Abigail Spanberger. She's one of our alums who is in Congress, who is running for governor, and she's going to be on the ballot with two of our other alums, Kathy Tran and Danica Rome, who have been really fierce in their work in the House of Delegates and the State Senate. Both Kathy and Danica ran post-2016 after Trump won because they knew that they wanted to continue on Hillary's legacy and the work that women do in their communities. And we've seen several of them rise to higher office. We also look at New Jersey, where we have State Senator Brittany Timberlake, who's also going to be running for re-election. So this is something for us to keep in mind as we're doing this work is we already do have races and candidates that we can invest in. We don't have to wait for the midterms to put more great people in office and re-elect those great people to office. Next slide. So yes, Latifah Simon, also an Emerge alum. who replaced the amazing Barbara Lee in Congress. The fact is, we're having a discussion about Democrats in disarray. They don't know what they're doing. Nothing works. We do have stuff that works. Emerge is one of the things that works. Making sure that we have great candidates on the ballot and that they have all of you as supporters does work. So as we move into this next cycle over the next 4 years, the activism piece is going to be extremely important, and there is a role for everyone to play. And if you're looking for great candidates to support, you can always support any of our Emerge alums who are on the ballot. Thank you.
Party. Party time. Questions? Anyone have any questions?
I was gonna say, man, it's fine. Hello, Kamiki Campbell. Hi, nice to see you and meet you. I am a burnout staffer, like many people in this room, and right. And we were talking a little bit about this at lunch, but I really do want to. I'm hoping other people are having these conversations. How do we? There's a lot of political organizing that I think people don't know how to translate into community organizing. To help them get to, well, we're in the middle of local races right now, getting ready for the primaries, but translated for 26, 28 in particular. So what advice would you give folks who are out of a job, want to organize, or have a job, and still want to keep connected to the communities? One example we were throwing around was one of the things that the other side does is they'll pay, a person to organize in the community, sit in churches, sit with community organizations. And that will, folks will say, Republicans were there for us, where were the Democrats? They only come around when it's time for an election. So just want to get you guys' thoughts on those things and how we keep building those bridges forward.
Sure. So thank you for that question, because it's incredibly important. And I think we need to take the idea of soft power a lot more seriously. And what I mean by that is that if politics is the only thing that you're doing, you've already lost. And I know we're all overextended, but frankly, I think that's what contributes to a lot of our burnout. So host potlucks with your friends. Have a hot chocolate night with your neighborhood. Like, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be crazy, but it can just be a moment where you say, like, put flyers on people's doors and be like, hey, do you want to come out Saturday afternoon and, like, roast some marshmallows? Like, you bring a fire pit. You bring the marshmallows. You bring, like, graham crackers, you bring the chocolate, make sure there's vegan ones, or kosher ones. But my point is that there are things that you can do that is literally, like community building, I think we have forgotten, is that. It is community building, but it requires the same skills as organizers. You are going and you are literally organizing an event. You're telling people what part of it they should be responsible for, whether it's potlucks or whatever the case may be. But I do want to touch on something you said. You cannot do this if you're burned out. And I will tell you right now, some days are better than others. I put my phone down an hour before I go to sleep, and I don't touch it for an hour after I wake up. And it has been the greatest thing that I've been able to do, because I promise you, if you give yourself just a few hours a day, you will be so much more productive for the rest of it. And it's the only way you can give more of yourself is if there's any of you left. But if there's nothing of you left, you're not even going to be able to do that potluck, no matter how much fun it is or you're looking forward to it. You're not going to do that s'mores roast, no matter how much you're looking forward to it. But it doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to be there.
Exactly what Rua said, and I've been helping Rhonda Fox, who was the women's director for the campaign, build a community that we are now calling the Persist Network. And one of the things that is just so key there is, how can you just integrate this into your daily life? It doesn't have to be an extra. So if you're going to church already, can you get there 30 minutes early, an hour early, and just meet with people to say, hey, let's talk about what this city council person did. Did you know so-and-so is running for office? Yeah, I remember what they did when they X'd our community, and that was really bad. We need to make sure that we're showing up. So that's the big thing for me now, because I know everyone is tired, And this is definitely a marathon for probably the next decade or so to really get things going. So I want for people to focus on what am I already doing that can easily flow into organizing my community? Where am I already at? Who am I meeting with? And I think we also can realize it can just be simple things. If you see something online, you can just text it to a whole bunch of people and say, hey, make sure you keep an eye on this. Hey, isn't that your son's school? I hear there's something going on with the school board. It doesn't always have to be big, overt, and large. And it's more authentic when you're just showing up because you truly are already going to be there, you want to be there, and you want to help the other people that you're in community with.
Thank you both. My name is Rodney Nickens. I'm from Virginia. So this question is kind of messy, but I really want to know, kind of, Rua, from your perspective, like, where do you see your relationship with the DNC going now that we have new leadership and potentially a door might be open to have a conversation about the next convention and potentially having some representation? So kind of like, what is your strategy to engage with the DNC? And then for Ashanti, I guess kind of the same question, but like, where do you see like the role of state Democratic parties in supporting your work? And for those of us who are kind of like, I want to say like not exactly happy with the Democratic Party right now, like how do you, well, what advice do you have for us for working, doing the political organizing, but also doing the community organizing and like organizing within like our local Democratic committees and things like that? So, yeah.
So totally not a messy question because it's actually something, so like full disclosure, I was getting calls in November of people being like, you should run for DNC chair. And I was like, I literally cannot run for an organization that I barely understand how it functions and I don't really like very much. Because like, frankly, full disclosure, like I think that there are different tools and different organizations that have different roles, right? The DNC is a vehicle. It is not sort of like the kind of institution where I can like go knock doors. Like there are things that in this work that's really hard do bring me joy. I just can't find that at the DNC. And I really did mean what I said. Like I had a rule since 2016. I don't fuck with the DNC. I broke it once and my life went to shambles. And so when I had like surrogates on behalf of like DNC chairs like reaching out to me and things like that, I was just kind of like respectfully like, I think here's my advice to you. Here's what I like the values you should be espousing. Here are some things you should do. But my focus is state stuff. And what I mean by that is that the state stuff makes up the national stuff. But it's kind of like your voice is competing with so many less voices to be heard versus on a national level. So it's not meant to be like shady or messy, but I really do mean it. My passion has been state stuff. And you're right, there have been people who, and this happens anytime you win a race, whether it's city council or school board or state rep, they're already thinking about you running for Congress or like you running for governor. I'm like, I literally just got here. Like, can we chill out? And that's a long-winded way of saying that I'm always happy to advise. I'm always happy to provide my feedback and what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, always in good faith. That is what I have done. That is what I will continue to do. Because at the end of the day, I want us to succeed. Everything that ever happened has always been with that lens in mind, because when they succeed, we all succeed. We're all better off. But we can't do that when we can't reflect the will of the people because we're listening to the wrong people, right? And so that, I think, to me is how I will be approaching all of this, whether it's my caucus leadership, whether it's DNC leadership, whether it's the Democratic Party of Georgia. My door is always open to everybody. But for me, they will continue to hear the same message. It's a values-based one, and it's a voters-based one. My district was one of the few that had a blue arrow going left in the entire county for Harris. And what we do, I have a proof of concept that works. If they want to hear it, I'm always happy to share it.
So I love that we're doing this together because I actually come out of the Democratic Party. I was secretary of the Nevada Democratic Party. I used to be a DNC member when I was vice president of the College Dems. I did 2 tours of duty at the DNC. That's how I describe it, yeah. I did 2008 to 2011, and then I came back for more I did on purpose. I did. from 2014 to 2015 when I was the Deputy Director of Community Engagement, and I did the African American engagement at the party. So keep all of that in mind when I say I left the DNC because I knew I could be more effective outside the DNC for what I wanted to do. And I still love the DNC. I was there on Saturday for the elections. I've already gotten calls from the DNC officers who want to meet and talk, and that's the key thing, is that they are already reaching out to organizations and people. We're a state-based organization. We have the elected officials and candidates on the ground, so they do want to listen and they do want to move forward. And I think that is what is important with this current party leadership. It's not we already know it all. They know that they have a lot to fix. They know that people are unhappy, and they're going to do that outreach and the work. It's the same with state parties as well. You're going to have leadership that changes over. And I think that is one of the hard things that creates stability for state parties. Now, there are some state parties where that person has been chair ever since a while, right, Amy? There are some people like they're holding it down. Like members of Congress, they ain't giving up that seat. There are state party chairs. They are not giving up that seat. But then it's the reality. Yeah. But that's a bad thing too, because it doesn't allow the fresh voices to come in. And that goes back to what Rua was talking about with soft power. Like, you don't have to have the title to be a leader. I literally just love politics and started volunteering one day. Now I'm here talking to all of you. I was just doing something that I love. So I think that's really important to keep in mind with our party. And the party cannot be everything to everyone and do all of the things. And that is just the reality. When I was working there, I really wanted to focus on getting women to run for office. I couldn't do that there. I came to the DNC because of Governor Dean. Absolutely loved him. He was doing the community engagement work. He was partnering with Gain Power. He was focusing on the candidates and building up activists. Like, that's what made me want to come to the DNC, is Governor Dean's 50-state strategy and investing in people. That wasn't the case when I went back the second time. So I had to leave to be able to do what I wanted to do. But we have to keep that in mind with the DNC. They're not going to be able to meet all of our needs as the voters of the party. And at the end of the day, the DNC has one job, and that is to win elections, particularly the presidential election. So everything that they do really needs to feed up into that.
Hi, thanks for being here. I'm really enjoying hearing you. Ashanti, this is mostly for you. I'm Mary. I'm from Portland, Maine, but I live in Charleston, South Carolina now. So I was like, obviously I voted for Kamala. I wanted a woman president. I'm still kind of shocked that this country isn't ready. Are we not ready for a woman? I mean, come on. So I guess I'm just curious about Emerge. Like, do you have an inside scoop on who might run as a female for the next presidential? Or, you know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the thing. We have a bench, and I think we should be really excited about that. There are so many women who can run. I think it's going to be exciting, and I really don't. Let me back up a little bit. So the day after the election, I woke up at 6 a.m. because I had to start prepping to do press. And when I was on with our comms team, they were like, you don't have to do press. It's okay, Ashanti. We can postpone it. And I said, no, I'm going to need to do press because they're not going to ask me why she lost. It is going to be my job to defend women as candidates and elected officials. And that is literally what I was doing from November to December, is defending women. Yes, they can run. Yes, they can win. No, he does not have a mandate. Please look at the numbers. He does not. There continue to be people who are ready for a woman president. We had a disconnect last cycle. There were the millions of people who stayed home that voted for Joe Biden. That is where our real issue was. And I'm very honest with these midterms as well. I need our elected officials fighting back, because if those people don't see that, guess what? They're going to stay their ass home again. And we're going to have a real problem. So, no, it's not that they weren't ready for a woman. I think there's a lot of people, who voted for him that didn't want a woman. But then there were other people who we're seeing it now. A lot of people are in the FAFO phase of their vote. They're facing it. I can't believe he's really implementing the Muslim ban again. I can't believe he's doing deportation. I can't believe he's doing this to the federal government. He literally showed us who he was. Literally. But people still didn't believe it. So for me, it's not the woman factor at all. We wouldn't have elected over 400 women if people had a problem with women, if people didn't want to vote for women. And like Janelle and Andrea, they won in districts that the VP didn't. So there definitely was that disconnect somewhere, but it's absolutely not with the woman. So I love that you're in South Carolina and Maine. Those are two states where we have affiliates. So the Speaker of the House in Maine is an Emerge alum, the first Black woman to hold that office in Maine. These are stories across Emerge when we have women who are the first, particularly Muslim women, Black and brown women. They're getting voted in districts where the majority of the people don't look like them. So it's on us to push back when we hear, oh, the problem was people didn't want to vote for a woman. If that was the case, we wouldn't have any women in elected office right now.
And so, if it surprised you that I'm going to defend Vice President Harris, it shouldn't, because there was a fundamental problem at play here, which is that there's a phenomenon called the glass cliff. Usually, if a corporation is doing really badly, somehow that is the moment they decide to make either a woman or a minority a CEO, so that when shit hits the fan, they look around and go, see, we told you none of these people should be in power. That is always how it works. And to be very clear, it would have been so much worse if President Biden had stayed at the top of the ticket. So when people say, for example, that the country's not ready for a woman, women overperform in elections time and time again compared to their male counterparts, every time almost, literally. And we heard misogynistic takes, trust me, I've heard them. But also, as someone who grew up in the South, I heard some of the most racist things come out of people, then went and voted for Obama. Voters are weird. They're really weird. Yeah. And so, we can't allow a self-fulfilling prophecy to occur just because somebody else said the thing, right? I think that voters look for leadership. I think that polling is something that can be shifted. And the idea that we lost because a woman was at the top of the ticket is just simply not true. She had less than 100 days. Less than 100 days. It was, I have a lot of concerns of what happened between July through August. I was we're going to win. And then, depression hit. But, I still think that there were also fundamental issues at play here. And I do think that she was set up for failure. And I think that there were people on her team that were more loyal to who was already in the White House than to her. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't need to get any messier. But as someone who had to deal with some of them, I just don't think they were good for our party. So
that's a whole nother panel that we could have.
I think we have time for one more question.
I really appreciate the work that you all do. I especially understand how difficult it is to work in quote-unquote swing states where you're working in communities that are not as friendly. But I'm from California, specifically from Los Angeles, and I know a lot of people are also from quote-unquote blue states and progressive cities and things like that. And I'm really curious to know how someone in your states are thinking about the leadership from these quote-unquote progressive enclaves. Because, as you know, how involved they are at the fundraising level, the political... you can go there. Yeah.
Okay.
I need to think before I answer.
So I actually shared this with some of y'all earlier. I had an epiphany because, social media has, in a lot of ways, really interconnected us a lot. And there was a take that I kept hearing that Democrats and Republicans are just two different wings of the same bird. And I was just oh my God, I live in Georgia. Cannot be further from the truth. But my epiphany is actually because in blue states, a lot of Republicans run as Democrats. And when I say that we need to be focused locally, I'm talking about everybody everywhere. I meant what I said on the stage. Every election should be contested. Every primary should be contested. It makes us better candidates. Trust me, it sucks. It's a lot of work. It's hard, blah, blah, blah. But like, even if you just symbolically put your name on the ballot, even if all you do is get people who think like you to force a meeting with this person that's been ignoring you, that is a worthwhile endeavor. And for those of you in blue states in particular, especially in your local school boards and city councils where it's potholes and picking up the trash and making sure kids have textbooks and that we're retaining our teachers and that we have good policies, anytime a Democrat messes up when it comes to governance, it makes the rest of our party weaker. And we have got to start taking that seriously. And I know that I piss a lot of people off in my state, especially when it comes to Atlanta. But like, you can't ignore a petition of 116,000 people and cheat your way out of a ballot and then turn around and go, come out here and vote for me. That stuff matters. And so when we talk about like progressive politics, when we talk about like blue states in particular, my hope is that they learn from us in red states. We have to be tenacious and we have to be scrappy, but we also have to keep people on their toes and demand more. And I think in blue states in particular, the voters there have gotten a little too comfortable. But we need y'all to set the baseline that the rest of us aim to achieve, or else we're going to keep shifting right.
Rua is absolutely right. And I think the main thing that came to mind when you started talking about blue states is we can't get comfortable with living in a blue state or a red state or a purple state. Like, I'm from Nevada. It was red, we've been blue, and then now we're back red again. So it's ongoing work, and part of that ongoing work is we have to hold our elected officials accountable. You know, I tell our alums all the time who are running for re-election, if you've done the work, you've introduced good bills, you're talking to your constituents, you're taking care of business, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. So our alums have a 97% win rate when it comes to their re-election. It's because they focus on community and the people and getting it done. And I'm still a voter too. Like, I'm a citizen. We have to hold them accountable. And I think that's where we're really losing it, even when it comes to our Democratic leaders, is they have to be held accountable. You still have to do the job. And if you get primaried, that should also tell you something, that you need to do a better job and make them work for it. It should not be easy, breezy, peasy, because that's why we have a lot of these problems across the country, is so many people have gone uncontested. They've been there for decades. Like our work that we're doing in the South, we have a Georgia affiliate. I got a lot of pushback when I was political director at Emerge for wanting to go to the South, because there wasn't going to be that immediate return, and what are we going to get out of it? I'm like, we're going to be creating legacy. And that hasn't been done before. Like, Rua is a legacy in Georgia from what she has done. So it is important. That we're not taking any state that we live in for granted, because one of the things that I say at Emerge, and this is what I said to the team the day after VP loss, is I know despite how hard each of us wake up and work every day to make change, that there are people who wake up every day and work just as hard to stop that change and undo that change.
Thank you so much. Passing the mic, Sarah, to close out.
I just also wanted to add a comment, just because that question makes me so insane. Men have been losing for decades, for centuries, right? For every election, men have lost. Nobody afterwards said, well, I guess can we elect another man, right? Should a man run again? You never hear that. That doesn't mean the racism and the sexism isn't real and doesn't exist. But come on. And when we ask the question, we put it into people's mind. So I ask this respectfully, don't ask it again. Don't ask it again, because you're implying the answer is that we can't do it. So please reject the premise. Thank you. Sorry. I just needed to add that.
Yep. Sarah. Close us out.
Thank you. I get the job of closing us out, which again is terrifying to me, because we've got like two amazing powerhouses on the stage and a powerhouse and several powerhouses throughout this room. So, well, thank you.
Yes,
thank
she
you.
is.
Appreciate that. I think, like, to close us out, and since I'm standing between you and dinner or happy hour, I think to close us out, how many of y'all have had like moments of intense energy today? And yet you're still bogged down by the weight of the world, right? Yes. So what I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes and think of one word. And visualize a color, an object, a place that goes with that one word. Okay. Now I'm going to ask for a very special sound bath in this room. I'm going to ask you all to keep your eyes closed, but as you're visualizing that place or that object that represents that one word, I want you to speak that one word at the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Love it. Okay. Now you can open your eyes, and I want you to think for a minute about what you just heard. And with that, I'm going to thank you all for being here today. Thank you for letting me introduce the two of you, and have a wonderful evening.